And
push the button, Frank.
Push the
Andrew,
button. What?
I would like to preface this that this tops what previously had been the worst reading assignment I had ever received in my life. Previously, that had been Wise Blood by Flannery O'Connor or some shit like that in my freshman year of high school. And
it's bad.
which is a book that no one should ever be made to read. But no, you, sir, you have given me a text that, well,
I have to call it a book or a story, but it is a text.
it is a text. It is a text insofar as you can read it, and it contains words in an order.
Most of them are words. Most of them are actual words.
Many of them misspelled, misused, and whose meaning the author was not entirely clear on. And who doesn't.
Yes, well, we'll get into all of that. You're unhappy, Kieran, and I don't blame you. A few weeks ago, I suggested that it would be a good idea. Actually, this is months ago. I suggested it would be a good idea to take a look at what is widely considered the worst fantasy story of all time, The Eye of Argon by Jim Tice. And when I suggested this, I was under the impression that you boys had actually read this before.
Not
But
heard of it.
apparently I was mistaken.
Bits and pieces. Like, I knew about it and I knew the gist of it, and people were like I knew enough about it, kind of like I know enough about the movie The Room. Like, I haven't seen it, but
The Room is wonderful.
but if I sit through it, there's like I'm going to be able to follow along and do the callbacks and all of that shit because I know enough about this movie.
Sure.
But I thought it was funny. I was like, man, I don't think this guy set out to like tell a story so much as just torture the English language for existing.
Yes.
He's certainly succeeded in doing that.
I actually knew it existed in the same way I knew Goatsy existed, and I knew it was a comparison.
Yeah.
And I was simply in college, for disclosure, a lit major. Unlike both of you have actually both been involved in English education, so I don't know how both of your eyes didn't leap out of your head, punch you in the testicles, and file for a divorce.
Goggles. I wore goggles when I read.
All right. Let me be honest here. This is not my first rodeo with Eye of Argon. I encountered it a long time ago. In the early days of the internet, there was a Usenet groups, and there were Usenet and Rec Arts groups that now have all been folded into Google. It's now all Google groups now. But if you go on Google Groups, you can go find stuff that goes all the way back to the 1990s. And back then, there was this thing that fans of Mystery Science Theater 3000 used to do. Excuse me. Called mistings, where you would take this piece of text and you would insert at various points where it would be funny, Tom, Crow, and Joel, or Mike if you prefer, commenting on the text. And this was like the early form of fisking, except it was a comedic art form. And I did a couple, and that in that group is how I first encountered the Eye of Argon being misted by, Joel and the bots, which really softened it for me. I want to admit it took a lot of the sting out, but I just thought it was hilarious. And so I'd assumed you guys thought it would be, or had already read it and thought it was hilarious too, because as soon as I said it, you were like, oh, right, Eye of Argon. Yeah, we can do that.
I'd seen pieces of it, and I had cringed when I read. I was like, oh, I was like, okay, well, that's something I'll have to like come back to later. And yeah, I shouldn't have said that.
Well, I inadvisably took it on sober, which is a lot like watching Meet the Feebles sober. It is inadvisable and not good for your mental health.
You know what?
Now-
After all this, I'm gonna have to actually watch Meet the Feebles. I'm gonna have to do it.
I have it on DVD. I have it on DVD. I can make that happen for you. Now, mind you, I'll need the DVD back because I need to give it to a good friend of me and Michael's who inflicted many horrible movies upon us, and it is only just. That's right, Madre. If you're listening to this, bitch, this is coming out to you, girl. This is coming out to you. You deserve this.
Andrew, as your friend, I'm going to say this just once. Don't do it. Don't watch that movie. All
Okay.
I don't think you should. I'll make it happen if you want it to, but I don't think you should either. Not sober. And make sure your wife and children are out of the house for a good 48 hours during and afterwards, because you want the existential horror to fade away a little bit before encountering close family members.
Okay. I'll take that under advisement. I will.
If you can get a priest to come and bless the house after you watch it.
Yeah, exorcise
Yeah.
the demons. Exorcise the demons. All right,
Yeah.
so we've all
this will
read
keep
it.
demons out. Mm-hmm.
We've all read it.
Mhm.
I read it this week. We all got free copies of it. We did not pay money for it, which is a good thing.
No, we did not.
We did not. And there was a moment when I felt bad about not paying money for it, but
That quickly passed.
I've done some research on it since I read it, and I did some research on it this week, and now I don't feel bad about not paying money for it at all. What is Eye of Argon? What is it? What is it in itself, Clarice?
Marcus Aurelius, what is its nature?
It is a sub Robert Howard thud and blunder sword arc. There is a barbarian who is supposed to be our protagonist. His name is Grigner.
Yeah, I was reading the story and I was like, so this guy's a redhead and his name is Grigner. Did this guy just not know how to spell ginger? So he's just like, oh, it's Grigner. And I'm like, are you sure it's not just ginger? Because he's definitely a ginger. Like,
yeah, other people have made that comparison as well. You're wrong. And there's
Gringer of the accordions. I'm like, the accordions.
Yeah,
I do not fear his people. I do not fear his people at all. His people are clown shoes, okay?
I was reading the name of I was reading the name of his people, and I was like, so is it actually physically possible to say this out loud and have it not sound like accordion? Because I don't think it is.
Let's not mess around here.
All right.
I got the copy here. It's on my phone.
I got it on my Kindle. Right next to Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, I'll have you know. Poor Marcus Aurelius.
Poor Marcus Aurelius. He's fine. He's a stoic. He'll live through it.
Shit.
The weather-beaten trail wound ahead to the dust-racked climes of the barren land which dominates large portions of the Norgolian Empire.
For that second sentence. Yeah, I was like, what is the subject?
Okay, gentlemen, you have both taught high school at various levels of education. Dissect this first moment for us as you would grading a paper.
And it goes. That's among the more coherent sentences in the story. In the story, I'm gonna try and find my highlights because there are just. Go ahead, Mike.
So, like in the second sentence, right? Okay, second sentence. So the age-worn hoofprints smothered by the sifting sands of time shone dully against the dust-splattered crust of earth. I was like, wait a minute. I actually wrote down in my notes here, I was like, what is the subject of this sentence? Number one. Number two, I was like, so if the hoof prints are smothered, how are they shining at all? Like, how do we see them?
Especially if the sands are sifting, that would imply that there were no hoof prints.
Yeah, right.
If I might read us a passage that has a conundrum. Descending from his perch, Gringer was startled by a faintly muffled scream of horrified desperation. His hair prickled yawkishly in disorganized clumps along his head. The fuck is yawkishly? I have never heard the word yawkishly. The fuck does that even mean? What word was he seeking that is not there? And why is this sentence necessary?
Wait a minute.
Prickled yawkishly?
From where do you come, barbarian, and by what are you called? Gasped the complying wench. Gasped. She got all that out in a gasp, did she? Did she? As Grigner smothered her lips with the blazing touch of his flaming mouth. Picture this.
Sounds like you got gonorrhea or maybe herp, man. I mean, your mouth is flaming, man. You gotta go see a doctor and get that looked at. Pretty sure that's something that's communicatable. First off, you're definitely having a flare up, Gringer.
I'm just a simple barbarian, but I'm pretty sure my mouth being on fire might be bad. Okay, so yeah, with this whole gasping thing, right? So like first line of dialogue, I have a note where I'm like, why is the soldier gasping? Is he injured? Did he forget his inhaler? Like, what is going on?
He dickered with the notion that he was dead.
What?
This is in chapter 3.
Yeah.
I read it. Yeah.
Am I dead? Maybe. He dickered with it.
Oh man, that sucks. I had all these things to do.
Okay, I'm sorry. Existentialism and barbarians. I don't see it happening. Also,
Gringer no want to smash. Gringer feels sad and indifferent. Yeah, no.
Gringer only pawn in game of life.
Life, right? Yeah.
Big game of life. I'm like, wow, man, these barbarians are written worse than barbarians in the Gore books, and that's a subject. I hope we never cover Gore. My wife has quite a few of the. My wife has quite a few of the book's first edition printings, actually, and I could research the subject, but I don't want to. I could.
I also want it noted that the slender, pale-faced female, naked but for a golden jeweled harness enshrouding her huge outcropping breasts. Her breasts
she has like
outcropping.
Geological features?
Yeah.
It's body horror now.
There's another thing where he's describing breasts in here in which it makes literally no sense. Like, he can't decide if the breasts are firm or sagging on the same woman within the context of the same goddamn paragraph.
They're like a bag of sand,
Yeah,
it's like, I mean, written by someone who, in my suspicion, had not encountered titties in their life in any real sense. Not even
they never
porn.
did. Yeah, anyway. But
I hope they never reproduced. I mean, nothing against the author of this tome, but
we'll talk about the author of this tome later on. Right now, we need to just sit in this horror, this not horror actually, because the mind just recoils into hilarity. So this guy Grigner, when we meet him, he's riding his horse or something, and as soon as they're done describing the dusty trail, there's immediately a fight breaking out between Grigner and two soldiers. We don't know why 100%. We suspect that he's a bad guy, or he's a wild guy, or he's a barbarian. He's being chased by bad guys, and he kills them. There are flashing feet of blinding steel.
So there were a bunch of things. So I noticed in this happened a bunch. In this, I guess, manuscript. Yeah, there we go. So like,
Oh, you stumbled over calling it that.
yeah, well, yeah, the mind recoils in horror, right? No, but
Right.
there's a bunch of stuff in here where, sort of like, okay, so the description's going in this direction, and then like I have another note here where it's like paragraph 5. Wait, I thought it was dusty and arid. Now it's humid. Like, what's going on, man? Are you at the beach? Like, let's go. So I don't know. There were so many like. I was like, okay, so this is what's happening now. I'm starting to get a clear. Wait, what happened? You're indoors. Where did the breeze come from? Like, there's no windows in this building apparently. Like, where is the draft? Like, yeah. So
reading this thing, it was as if I had Inigo Montoya on my shoulder reading with me and saying through every few sentences, "This word, I do not think it means what you think it means."
Do not think what you think it means. No.
You
There's
keep
a lot of
saying
that.
this.
There's a lot of that. It's what Mike, if you remember when we were taking Becker's class at
Yes.
short fiction, this is what he would call kenning or keening. It's kind of a poetic exaggeration. Like every noun has an adjective and every verb has an adverb or perhaps more than one. Nothing can be stated simply. Everything has to be intentionally, thickly, overladingly verbose. The girl burst into a slow, steady whimper, stooping shakily to her knees and cringing woefully from the priest with both arms wound snake-like around his bulging jade shin rising before her scantily attired figure. Her face was redly inflamed from the salty flow of tears spouting from her glassly dilated eyeballs. She's scared of the guy and she's crying.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
Okay,
try now. Yeah, no.
Now, don't get me wrong. Both Howard and Lovecraft were definitely guilty of some purple fucking prose, but they would have balked at this shit. Yes. They would have balked at this. Like, no, that's a tad bit excessive, eh?
Well, it's all back. Yeah, dial it back. It's all like way too hyper. Like most of the prose is way hyperbolic. Like it's just too exaggerated.
There's stomach curdling nausea. I have as my next note. Stomach curdling nausea, as opposed to the kind of nausea that like curdles your ears.
Yeah, as opposed to as opposed to like happy fun party nausea. We'll get some party nausea going. That's the good shit right there. Yeah, no. No, I mean, there's a bunch of the stuff is redundant. And that's the problem with it's like you said, that the keening or like, it's just like it's overwrought to a T.
Or if I might read us another passage, which is a beautiful example of this bullshit.
Do it.
Giving vent to heedless pandemonium, the priest fell easy prey to Gringer's sweeping arc of crimson death and maiming destruction. Motherfucker, can't you just say he cut them bitches?
Right.
I got a winner right here. In terms of redundancy, you were just talking about redundancy, Mike. His face flushed to a rose red shade of crimson.
How many times can you use like a synonym for red in the same goddamn sentence? I counted 3, maybe 4.
When you flush, you turn red. You don't turn any other color.
Yeah, and I mean, like, why not just add, like, while you're at it, since you're already using way too many words, be like, and his skin was very warm to the touch. Like, I mean, okay, like, his economy has already gone out the window.
Flaming. Like, His skin was flaming. Roasting like an oven to the touch.
Well, like, and I had a separate note that was just basically like, what is up with the verbs and adverbs in this? Like,
it's widely believed that the dude sat down with a thesaurus.
He didn't know what it was.
He sat down.
That was a kind of dinosaur, I suspect.
Yep. Where was I? Knowing where his steps were leading to, Grigner meandered aimlessly in search of an exit from the chateau's dim confines. if you know where you're going, you are not meandering aimlessly.
No.
Unless you're high as fuck. Unless you're Gandalf and you just smoke some long bottom leaf, then you might know I don't remember this place. That's because you're high as fuck, Gandalf.
Well, it was the whole. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's like, okay, so we're gonna start the sentence moving in one direction, and we're gonna completely turn that shit on its head before we like get to a full stop. And I was like, what is even happening? And like, we're still in the first chapter, right? And I have another note where it's like where we go. The trek to Gruesome was forced upon Grignr when the soldiers of Kryn were leashed upon him by a faithless concubine he had wooed. So I was like, all right, wait a minute. Do we even know what concubine means? Because, that usually means, like, this is somebody that's essentially the pleasure servant of, like, landed gentry.
Yeah, some rich dude.
I was like, yeah, some rich dude. So I was like, wait a minute. What kind of concubine could have actually sent these soldiers after him? I was like, is she a Bene Gesserit? Like, what's going on?
I mean, that might have been better. Or better yet, the prince whose chateau, motherfucker, that's French, okay? And you ain't being taken to Louis the 14th, so your ass ain't going to no chateau. It's called a fucking castle, okay? Good God, there are not chateaus in the Hyborian age, even in your made-up, fucked-up Hyborian age.
I was like, oh, so he's tangling with the Dauphin? Is that it?
The
Dauphin are like, French nobles. Like,
is Cardinal Richelieu going to show up? I mean, what's going on here,
Right?
I mean,
look, D'Artagnan, calm your shit.
I was like, no, and then like there was this other, like I had another follow up to that one, so I was like, wait a minute, so he's making his way to Gruesome, and I was like, so if this place is so ripe for the plucking, then why hasn't somebody, like, I don't know, closer and faster, like already raided or like plundered it already? Like, wait a minute, it's like, you're actually coming from pretty far away, boss. If this was like so ripe for the taking, like, I'm pretty sure somebody else would have gotten to it before your barbarian ass showed up.
That kind of world building error is the least of the problems here, but you're right.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not going to get into grammatical or contextual problems, but I will address inconsistent characterization of this barbarian. Good example is in the very beginning, when he's like, oh, well, I'm outnumbered, and these guys have their swords out, so let me see where this goes. All right, they take him to the chateau. All right, the prince is like, oh, all of you bow before me, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And he's like, I bow before no man, blah, 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 blah. Dick out on the table. I'm like, you are a fucking idiot. How? Why did you just save yourself time and fight all these dudes at once? Because now you have to fight all these dudes, plus palace guards, plus a grand vizier, plus a prince, and some naked wenches. Like, you just made this shit worse.
Especially since he killed two guys on the trail right before we met him. And then he kills a guy in the tavern, and then his buddies show up like, hey, you killed our friend. He's like, okay, we can back off right now. And then he turns on again.
Day.
My bad, dog.
It's like, make up your fucking mind. Are you canny like a fox or dumb as a brick, man?
Thou hast need to occupy your time, barbarian. Question the female?
The female. Oh, God, dude. Now I'm hearing it in a Ferengi accent.
The word female is used so many times just to say women. Woman. Just say woman. It's fine. You can just say woman.
Now I'm picturing the author writing this with a fedora on his head. I'm just in the basement. And a neckbeard. Lord Neckbeardius of the Fedora clan.
I see you are also a man of culture, Grignr. Oh, boy.
I mean, a bacteria is a culture, so I suppose, it's just like, I think this may have been written by the first modernly documented incel, okay?
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So when we get to like chapter 2 and he's in the tavern, like that's when I have my next note, and I was just like, wait, what's happening? It was literally, wait, what's happening?
What's happening?
Where are the transitions? Like, I can't tell what. Like,
he goes straight from Grigner's corded shoulder blades as his callous hands caress her firm protruding busts. She has more than one bust.
Apparently, yeah. So she's like, I don't know. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah.
You can't decide about the quality of these titties, but
Immediately, next sentence, you make love well, wench, admitted Grigner. As he reached for the vessel of potent wine his charge had been quaffing.
okay.
This is specifically where I was like, where are the transitions? What is happening?
Okay, did people just fuck or not? Because I'm led to believe this, but apparently not. Like, Grigger is an exhibitionist, or Grigger has a very narrow understanding of what sex is.
And then there's another flying foot, and then the caught the mug that Grigner had taken hold of, and then he fights the soldiers, and then the soldiers arrest him, and then he's off. Grigner gets captured. Grigner kills the vizier for the first time. Kills him for the first time. And then he gets sent down to a dungeon. He sits in a dungeon. He sits in like a pre-dungeon.
Right.
Before he goes to the actual dungeon where he's going to be like in the salt mines or something. And then we go immediately to he's sitting in the dungeon and he's sad. And that's the entirety of chapter 3. Then we get to chapter 3.5.
Yeah. This is the thing. It's like, why are there half chapters? It's a novella. It's not like it's, anyway.
Look, there are half chapters because this whole writing is half-assed.
Chapter 3.5, which is the tightly wrung elliptical circle of torches cast their wavering shaft prancing morbidly over the smooth surface of a rectangular ridged altar. And it just goes on like that. We get vivid, tedious detail of the priests and how they're dressed and the combinations of orange and purple that they are wearing. And there's the head of a mallet that's an oval and it's silver and it's a smooth oval mass. A luscious purple satin, wrinkled shaved scalps, golden rings projected the lobes of their pink ears.
And I could care less about these motherfuckers and their oddly fluorescent robes.
Well, so, yeah, I was reading this thing and I was like, I feel like doing a stage play version of this story would lend itself to a lot of sight gags and physical comedy. Like,
you're not the first to have that idea. That's actually quite a common thing, apparently.
Did somebody do it?
Oh yeah, people apparently do it all the time at sci-fi conventions.
That's amazing.
This is a thing. This has been going on since the 70s.
Oh shit.
That's how old Eye of Argon is. We're going to get into the whole history of it.
Yeah, for like 1972 or something like that, right?
After we finish our synopsis. So there's their pagan deity, outcropping breasts. We've talked about that. And in the center, the crystal, the thing, the MacGuffin is finally introduced, the Eye of Argon. Nothing happens in this half chapter. Nothing. It's just a description of the things.
Exposition.
It's not even relevant exposition because really there's a thing. In the thing is a thing. Like, and then he's going to show up later and then we're back to our boy, Ginger. We're back to our boy, Ginger. How he's been eating slop and is not happy, and he's lost weight, and he's fetid mush, and it's things are not going well for Ginger, just like they were at the beginning of chapter 3, which we've already covered. Things are not going well for him, and they're continuing to not go well. He's sleeping. His sleep cycle's all fucked up. Like, we get a whole cycle about that. He's not sleeping as often as he used to sleep. Do you understand what this means? And he's never going to make weight. And then
Sounds like he could use a couple of Ambien. I don't know.
and and then there's a rat, and he fights a rat.
Rodent of unusual size.
Oh, it's not just a rat. Ah, yes, there you go, Pod. Rodent of unusual size.
Rodent of unusual size.
And just like twists its head off.
Yeah, he twists its head off, snap, and then he takes its pelvis, the rat's pelvis, and makes a weapon out of it. That's what he does. That's what he does.
He's sort of an idiot because the rat's jawbone is actually a much stronger and sharper implement. But hey, what do I know?
That's chapter 5. Grigner kills the rat. Or chapter 4. There's no chapter 4.5.
Thank God.
Chapter 5 is a continuation of chapter 3.5. We're back at the altar. There's a fidgeting shaman. And there's priests, and shaman and priest is used interchangeably, even though they're not really the same thing, but
same thing at all, yeah.
That's the same thing. Girl bursts into slow, steady whimper. Stomach curdling nausea. We've covered this. The vile stench of the shaman's hot, fetid breath overcame the nauseated female with a deep, soul-searing sickness, causing her to wrench her head backwards and regurgitate a slimy, orange-white, one-word stream of swelling gore over the richly woven purple robe of the enthused acolyte.
So she barfed on him.
She barfed on him.
Yeah, that's what,
His breath smelled bad, and she puked on him. And then there's some more back and forth, and she kicks him squaw in the nuts.
In the nuts.
Oh, wait, I had a note about this. What the fuck is a urinary gland?
The whole thing around him getting kicked in the nether regions is it's got the whole flushing to the rose red shade of crimson. That's where that's from.
All right, see, and now I'm further confused by by the nature of our author, because if anything, I would feel that as a man, you would understand that getting kicked in the nuts pretty fucking well and would not need to dance around this shit like this. I mean, you have nuts that have probably been kicked. Can you not adequately describe
this guy going to his knees after getting kicked in the nuts is the longest paragraph in the chapter, and it's just describing him getting bent over in agony after getting a sharp one, after getting Rochambeau'd, and it goes on for the length of a Bible.
I mean, who is this tree trying to explain getting kicked in the nuts to? Women? Because none of them are dumb enough to read this story.
That's fair. Yeah, but
okay. When some more stuff happens, I may have skimmed this part. Some more stuff happens.
Skim a bit, brother.
It's like that. It's like he was kicked in the butts. He was not kicked in the upper thigh, nor in the lower thigh. He was not kicked in the belly.
But squarely in the nuts. Lord, bless this thy holy hand within, so it may blow thy enemies to bits in thy mercy.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure how this chapter ends, shuddering from the clammy touch of the shaman as they grappled with her supple form, hands wrenching at her slender arms and legs in all directions, her bare body being molested in the midst of a labyrinth of orange smudges, purpled satin, and mangled skulls, overshadowing in an eerie crimson glow. Her confused head reeled. I'm not sure what's happening, but it sounds like it should not be happening. And I don't want to read it.
I'm following what was actually happening, both because of like the misspellings, but then also the word usage. Because I was like, I don't know what is going on.
Are they grabbing her? Are they raping her on the altar? Are they trying to tie her down? What exactly are they doing? I mean, I get they're mad because she kicked the head priest and made him go down, you know.
But like, what is actually happening? Like, I don't know what is actually happening.
I get the idea there's supposed to be a sacrifice happening, But beyond that,
Well, the head priest is ruining the sacrifice because if it's a virgin sacrifice, then the god of the Igon, the idol, or Aragon, the idol, or whatever, is going to be pretty fucking displeased for him taking first samples off his virgin sacrifice. So really, they need to be happy that she kicked him squat in the nuts. And
not only that, but we find out later that this is the same wench that like Grigigner was cavorting with in the tavern. Like it's the same one. We get some of her backstory. So there's no way she would have been a virgin sacrifice. So none of this makes any sense at all.
Well, I mean, this whole clergy setup isn't making a whole lot of sense. I mean, typically, if you're sub-clergy to the head priest, unless he's like pretty beneficent, and this dude does not sound beneficent at all, you pretty much are not going to be overly upset if your sacrifice kicks him squat in the nuts, as long as the sacrifice doesn't give him away. So, I feel that,
I think they could be meeting for their book club for all I know. Like, I can't tell what's going on in this thing. Just be some dudes that are like really fashion, like out there that are like, just getting together to read a book that they really like. And I mean, with as clear as this text is, I mean, that could be what's happening. I'd never know.
There's some tea and some finger sandwiches. It could be a good time.
They needed a token naked woman because it's just not the same to talk about the book without a naked woman on the dais. I mean, how are you going to talk about literature other than any other way?
Why am I sitting up here naked on the altar? It's tradition, honey. Just relax. It's fine. We always do this.
I didn't get my stipend. Whap. Ah, shit.
I feel that this is. I've seen read some pretty incoherent shit, said some pretty incoherent shit for that matter, in my life. But this, I can't tell if this story is coming or going.
It maintains just enough of a narrative so that you understand that things are happening. You're not 100% sure what everybody's actions are or why they're doing it, but things keep happening in a way that sort of makes sense if you've read enough bad versions of Conan comic books as a kid, which I'm pretty sure was his source material. Like, he goes into the palace dungeon, he comes out. What is the relationship between the priests and the king? Who the hell knows?
Who knows?
There seems to be some suggestion that like these priests and the king are kind of on the outs and they're like heretics, but we don't get into it.
But they're hanging out in his basement, so
Look. I think I need to mention here that I feel you're maligning the black and white Savage Swords of Conan issues that Marvel produced, because I read quite a few of those myself, and while lurid and graphic in some cases, they at least had a clear narrative. I mean, the visual elements.
I'm not dissing Conan comic books. I mean, or anything related to Conan material at all. Certainly not anything that Robert Howard actually wrote. Robert Howard was an artist. That's clear to anyone who bothers reading them, and I've never read a Conan comic book either on Marvel or Dark Horse that I felt like I wasted my money. Not like
Conan's an Avenger now, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, isn't he back on Dark Horse? He's back on Dark Horse, I heard.
I think so.
I think he's back in Marvel, man. Like, I think he actually went.
Marvel dropped it.
Really?
No, because Savage Avengers is a pretty new thing, and that's a time-traveling team that has Conan and Ghost Rider in it, which is a weird time. And Wolverine.
Last time I was at my comic book store, this is what they told me.
Right.
Yeah, this was like this storyline I'm going over is only a couple months old, so I think Conan might have gone. Oh God, what's the term? The words are not helping me here. When a story is public domain, I think Conan is public domain now, so it doesn't really matter who uses them.
Interesting.
I'm good with that. Anyway, go ahead, Mike.
So I wanted to talk about word use, and one word in particular, slut. Misuse. And I'm like, dude, do you know what slut means? Because you're using it in particular like context where I'm like, this word really does not mean what I think you think it means.
Like the word slut is used a lot, never once directed at a woman.
No. All the men are sluts, which I'm like, okay, well, I mean, that's fine,
He
but
calls
yeah.
men sluts exclusively, which you know you can do, but it's strange.
Well, and I don't,
Especially
and I don't think that it means what he think. I think he's trying to use it in a particular way. I'm like, did this guy like never actually encounter this word prior to writing this story?
I think he's trying to use it in a unique and original way and kind of like shake up the paradigm of it, because like women are called wenches or females. Females as like the narrow descriptive, but wench directly in dialogue. And the sluts are always what like it almost seems like, you know, like some form of like,
I think you're giving him too much credit for narrative intent.
we're gonna come back to that. We're gonna come back to that. We are gonna talk about the author of this piece and what happened. Anyway, so Grigner is like slipping his right hand to his thigh, concealing a small opaque object beneath the folds of the G-string wrapped around his waist. That was a sentence that I just read.
You did read that sentence just now.
I mean, I feel that we can translate this to our modern readers as he put it in his prison wallet.
And this is how he's being transported by the soldiers, and he does get called a slut at the beginning of chapter 6, and the fact that he's wearing a G-string apparently
does not help.
This is the closest we get to the word slut being used in context, but I still feel like the author still doesn't actually know what it means.
I also don't think he knows what a G-string is, because you aren't concealing, unless he's putting it in his prison wallet, you ain't concealing no kind of shiv in a G-string. Loincloth, yes.
Well,
G-string, no.
like that confused me too, because it's like, whoa. Did they like take his loincloth and he's only just got like, you know, like basically some shoelaces to hold it down? Like, what's going on? Like, you know.
Is he wearing a merkin? I mean, what's going on here?
Oh, he's not civilized, but he wears a merkin. Like, wait, what the fuck? No.
I mean, there are rules.
Apparently.
Is he actually concealing the pelvis of the rat in his bountiful pubes? I mean, what's going on? I don't feel Gringer manscaped, so...
We then get a turgid description of what the soldiers are wearing, which also, as with the priests, goes on for way too long. Goes on. You get a very clear idea of what they're wearing. I'm not sure what Grigner's wearing, other than a G-string.
We're not wearing.
We've got that, but we know what these guards are wearing. And then, having finished all of that, the fight breaks out.
Right.
And, well, actually, it doesn't happen right away. There's some dull dialogue and some things happening, and there's smells and owlish gazes and hawkbill curve of his nose and the pale yellow of his cheeks. I think he's talking about a soldier. I'm not going to sweat on it too much. And then there's Grigner's right arm swept to his gourd. Soldier went limp. Blah, 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 blah. Fight. Fellow stomach. Sentry, sweeping axe, blinding steel. All that. Scarlet locks and crimson granite paving. And a curse gets ejaculated through rasping teeth. And there's a bloated cherry red face. And then...
I'm glad someone's getting off in this.
Oh, okay, wait a minute. So yeah, then it's the rising to his feet. Grigner shook the blood from his eyes and ruffled his surly mane and brushed the fire swaying with the nighttime breeze. Yeah, to the nighttime breeze. Yeah, but like you're inside, dude. You're in a dungeon. Where is the breeze coming from? You're indoors, and for the rest of the description of this building, it's built without any fucking windows. So where, in fact, is the breeze coming from?
I might theorize to that. Perhaps in the guard's death knell, he like busted ass epically, and that was the breeze.
That would make more sense.
That's the nighttime breeze in the dungeon. It's just guys farting.
That's how. That's how I would have written it. Like, yes, the nighttime breeze that emanated forth from the
dying soldier.
ruptured colon of the.
I mean, this is right after
ruptured the colon of the dying soldier.
This is right after the sentry's arm collapsed to his thigh, shuddering convulsively. So, maybe.
Is he jerking? Is he jerking off, or is he dying? I don't know what's going on. I can't. I don't know what's text. I don't know what's subtext. I don't know what's innuendo in this shit.
You pretty much have to take everything at face value. There's no. You just have to read it straight. Don't subtext this because we just can't.
No,
it's true. There's just not enough to work from.
There is no deeper meaning.
I feel like we have a better chance taking a step at the Voynich manuscript. In all honesty,
you may be onto something there, old sport. Okay, so he's walking, he's meandering aimlessly while knowing exactly where he's going. God, it just keeps going, doesn't it?
Yeah, in my notes, I just have somebody should have given this kid a dictionary and a thesaurus and made sure that he knew what they were and how to use them.
Treaded down the dingily lit corridor. That happens a lot. There's a lot of treading down dingily lit corridors. That just keeps happening for a while. It's like the Epic of Gilgamesh, except terrible. And and that was only one part of the Epic of Gilgamesh. We need to get into that.
I mean, the Epic of Gilgamesh at least has the disadvantage of its missing parts. So we've rediscovered a few, but like it's missing some parts, so we've had to fill in the blanks. But I
didn't know that. Or I'd forgotten that.
It's not a complete manuscript.
Well, never mind that.
There's some cuneiform missing through. But the point is, it still makes narrative fucking sense, you know? Whereas this, the Eye of Argon...
Which is spelled the same as the element, by the way, which is a noble gas.
It is a noble gas.
Yep.
I see what you did there.
Yep.
You know what?
Yeah, well, this is not. This is an ignoble gap.
I need another beer. I'm gonna be right back before we can get to the end of this story.
You might want something stronger, Andrew.
I think beer will work.
Well, let's fill in the blank spots here, Mike.
Yeah.
Oh my fucking god!
One of the things I wrote down here. And this is sort of a combination of things that we've both already said so far, but it's my next note. I wrote down while I was reading this thing. So the prince lives in a palace that's really a maze without windows, ? What is going on with this chateau?
Yeah.
Because he's making his way through this place, like trying to get out. But I'm like, based on the descriptions of where this prince lives, it's like a windowless stone sarcophagus with multiple levels that have no windows, and this dude just lives in there 24/7, and that's how he does it. And I was like,
I mean, chateaus have wine cellars, and to my knowledge, wine cellars are definitely windowless and dank. But they're not that big. I mean, you
would think that like the whole purpose of having a palace is to build it above ground, so it's like large and impressive, and people are like, "Oh wow, somebody really rich must live there."
I mean, look, even the Versailles wine cellar ain't this big. I mean, he's thinking the Bastille. That's or wherever the hell they kept the man in the Iron Mask. I think that's the Bastille. Separate structures. You do not keep your criminals in the basement of where you keep your rulers.
No,
not generally.
No, you keep a separate.
They're separate structures. They're separate things. You don't. I mean, look. I don't keep madmen in my basement.
I mean, the Tower of London was used both as a royal residence in the Middle Ages and then became a prison later on, but it wasn't used the same way
at the same time.
Like we didn't keep Charles Manson in the basement of the White House. I mean,
Oh, we should have though. How fucking funny would that have been?
That would have actually been pretty.
Oh, God.
Pretty funny, actually. Yeah, and that was
In the next issue of Unnamed
and that was
Journal.
during the wasn't that was in the Johnson administration, wasn't it?
No, that was
Or
Nixon.
Was it Nixon? Oh, even
Yeah.
better. Yeah, no, that would have been yeah.
Nixon and everybody after Nixon. Nixon and Ford and Jimmy Carter. Oh my God. This just keeps getting better. All right, next issue of Unnamed Journal.
No one is writing a Tricky Dick and Chuck Manson buddy film, okay? No.
Well, we'll bring in
Turns
Hunter
out they had a
Thompson.
lot more in
It'll be
common than
great.
people realized. No, anyway.
Bring in Hunter Thompson. They'll be a perfect trio. Nixon and Hunter Thompson and Charles Manson. This is the dream team.
No, it ends shortly because, as far as I know, Thompson hated both of them and would have shot them both immediately.
Oh, I failed to see the problem with this.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been awesome, yes, but it wouldn't have been a very long story.
Anyway, he had unknowingly stumbled on an ancient, long-forgotten booby trap, a mistake which would have stunted the perusal of longevity of one less agile.
Yeah.
What is this sentence? What is this sentence? Did he trip a booby trap? Did he not trip a booby trap?
Did he narrowly avoid the booby trap that he triggered?
It's Schrodinger's booby trap. What?
How did this booby trap even work? What happened when he either avoided it or didn't avoid it? And why do we care?
It's Heisenberg's uncertainty booby trap.
Yeah. Well, I was reading this and I was like, okay, so they put this in the mausoleum, which I guess makes sense, but like, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm like, I guess that could make sense if you're trying to.
A forgotten mausoleum?
I was like, if you're trying to keep like.
Grave robbers
away, but like
maybe.
No. I profess that they do clearly have a pretty bad rat problem. So, ancient booby trap.
You know what? We're gonna give him a pass on that. We'll give him that pass. And then it goes on him something about the booby trap or
I can't tell. I couldn't tell when I read it. I just I was like, I don't know or care what's going on here. Really, that's part of the problem. I never know nor care enough to try to figure it out.
Well, so when I read it, it was like it seemed like there was some sort of hole in the floor, like a section of the floor basically goes like this, and it you slide down onto the spikes essentially, but then he manages to avoid that, but then he somehow still manages to use it to get down a level.
Mm-hmm.
And avoid the spikes, and then he gets underneath there, and he's like, "Oh well, I'm just gonna reset the trap, so if anybody comes in looking for me, they won't know that I went down here." And I was like, "Yeah."
Even though this is a scarred hidden room that clearly no one has been in aeons, dark aeons,
right? So I was like,
aeons lost to the time of man, See, even my shitty attempt at purple prose is still better than their earnest attempt. Yeah. But dude, no one cares about this trap because no one knows you're here because no one sounded the alarm, and even if they did, you're in the wine cellar. What are you gonna do? Drink all their Chardonnay? I don't know.
What alarm? Like what alarm?
Right.
Yeah.
This is where we get to the hair prickling yawkishly in disorganized clumps along his scalp, whatever that means.
I don't know.
Even if it was like something, kitty,
treachery,
avenge me. Even if we understood what yawkishly meant, even if you meant mawkishly, let's give him that. Who cares? Like he's been in prison, he's been losing weight. We know his hair looks like shit. Like we're gonna just assume that he's a savage. He doesn't manscape. He doesn't groom.
He doesn't use product. I mean,
he probably smells like a donkey most of the time anyway.
On a good
day, like on 2 days post his yearly bath.
To keep the evil spirits away.
You're being charitable about that yearly bit. And we assume that he uses water and not camel piss for this yearly bath, which I'm not entirely convinced by.
All right, so he's making short, nervous strides. He's doing things. He's walking, is what he's doing. He's walking. He's walking. We're walking. We're walking, and then we're stopping.
If there's are they strides if they're short and nervous? Sorry.
No, no, they're not. You are correct.
Look, we can't help that Gringer is a member of the Office of Silly Walks, okay?
Oh, that would explain it.
That's the only possible
Like-
explanation.
I kind of wish that Monty Python had not broken up before this got written, because they could have written this and it would have been gold.
They hadn't.
Or they could have read it. Like,
This was published
no,
in
like
1970.
oh yeah, you're right. But I feel that also that Mel Brooks missed out on a real opportunity to adapt this to film.
You may be onto something.
As a musical.
Argon the musical.
Oh boy.
I would watch that musical. I would watch that. And I don't even like musicals. All right.
We could, repurpose songs from Grease and Fiddler in the Roof for it. So there you go.
Yes. So, okay, at some point he stumbles onto the scene that we left million years ago with the priests and the girl and the high priest who got kicked and all of that. And then a bunch of stuff happens and Grigner goes all Grigner on them is my take from all of this. Because at some point, in order to get through it, in order to get it all read last night, I had to just be like, okay, we're just going to... He's fighting the guys.
Skim a little.
Skim a little. He's fighting the guys. There's a gaunt, skull-faced priest standing at the far side of the altar, clutching desperately his throat, lurching helplessly to and fro. The acolyte. Is he a priest or an acolyte? Those are not the same.
They're not.
Those are not the same. And then, Grigner's sweeping arc of crimson death and maiming destruction, blah, 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 blah. He kills some guys.
All went silent, save for the ebbing groans of the sinking shaman and Grigner's heaving breath, accompanied by several gusty curses. The well had run dry.
The well had run dry. No more lambs were made for the slaughter. Do you notice how those are like short, like almost periodic sentences?
They're like the two best sentences in this whole damn thing.
The two best sentences. I highlighted them because, like, the well had run dry. No more lambs were made for the slaughter. That's effective. That conveys what I need to know as a reader and provides a pause before we go on to further action. It's amazing. It's amazing that these two sentences exist in this story, and I love them. Even though they're both like gaping cliches, like well runs dry, no more lambs for slaughter. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, and that cluster of three sentences completely lacks any transitions. But that's okay.
That's okay.
I mean, it's it's amazing that the only sensical sentences in this motherfucker are idioms at that. But
we understand those
well-worn idioms, but we understand those idioms. The rest of this shit...
And they're well-chosen idioms that fit what's happening.
Yeah.
I feel that this is the point where, like, he asked a friend, "Hey, man, what would be a good couple of sentences for this situation?" Like, "Oh, well, da-da-da-da-da. Cool, I'm going to use that."
All right, so then he looks at the cult's hideous deity, Argon.
It's a noble gas, man.
It's a noble gas. And he's looking at the idol. He's looking at the idol. He's looking at the idol.
Noble gas, like a divine fart.
And then he gets to the jewel, gigantic as it was, would not present a hindrance of any mean concern, which I'm going to take to mean he stole the damn thing.
I get
later on,
And put it in his prison
later
wallet.
on, he has it. It
Yeah.
never says that he takes it. It just says that it's there and he can take it. So I'm going to assume that he does.
Well, that's because active verbs are for other people. I have noticed that in this writing that active verbs in this manuscript are for other people. They are not for the likes of this person. For
Jim Tice.
Yeah.
Jim Tice is the author.
Well,
All right, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No. So, and then he meets the girl again. You ejaculated the accordion in a pleased tone.
That was a sentence you just read.
I'm now picturing clown porn. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm now picturing clown porn.
Squeaky.
Which is a conversation for another time, but
Or never.
First, never.
oh no! I get after Eye of Argon, I get a couple of freebies, man. This
Okay, so he meets the girl. She has an entrancing stare. Okay.
Sure.
Several golden change, blah blah blah. And then, art thou pleased that we have once chanced to meet once again? Oh, my prince, would that you would drink of my lips as deeply?
yeah. Like he can't decide how these motherfuckers speak in this
No.
either.
They all talk like they stumbled out of a Marlowe play. Anyway, I think they make out.
They talk.
They make out again. They embrace.
Like which apparently is the extent of like of Gringer's knowledge of lovemaking is making out. I'm like, dude, you are not even getting to second. Well, maybe that's second base. I don't know, but
he skips it.
I'm not thinking so.
It. He doesn't describe sex, and we should be grateful for that. We really should.
Well, that's fine. He doesn't have to describe it, but we should because God knows how that would turn out. Him trying to.
First rule of writing: write about what you know. And the author clearly didn't know about sex when he wrote this. All right.
I'm picturing something from one of the Naked Gun movies where was it purple-headed warrior into her quivering love pudding or some shit like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
His strong, manly hands groped every corner. Okay, I think they do have sex again because the next line is, "Let us take leave of his wretched chamber," stated Grigner as he placed the female upon her feet. So, presumably she was not on her feet before.
The female
on her feet.
Okay.
This guy loves alliteration. That should be pointed out. He loves alliteration. He loves it. She swooned a moment.
But alliteration works when you're clever.
Everything works when you're clever. She swooned a moment. After being put on her feet, she swooned. I don't know why she's...
Then why put her on her feet in the first place? I mean, she's going to swoon.
But she swooned. So, art thou able to find your way in this accursed passage of this castle? It's a castle now, not a chateau. Oh, and here's the name of Grigner's god.
Murph? Yeah, I don't know.
Murphic?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I was like...
Murphic?
Sounds like a wet fart. His god's a wet fart.
I thought it was being like Murph.
Wet fart.
And then we get the girl's backstory. Slave of the Prince Agaphim, nobly born. She was like a concubine, not actually a slave. Whatever. Details. And then they realize, hey, you're the one that... no, he already realized that because they had a you when he ejaculated. And we get her name, Carthena, daughter of Mincardos, Duke of Barwego.
Sure.
Mick Jagger?
That's a name? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a name. It's totally not made up. Whose lands border the northwest fringes of Gorzom. I thought Gorzom was a city. Is it the northwest fringes of Gorzom or the northwest fringes of the Norgolian Empire? Whatever.
Oh, like this motherfucker drew a map to in his world building to reference back
He
to.
may have. You never know. And then
Tolkien, this guy is
he's
not.
And she explains all this. She gives her name, her father's name, where her father's lands are, and that she was paid as homage to Agathim, who's the prince king guy whose palace they're in, upon his, meaning her father's 38th year, husked the femme with an exclamation point. She husked this language. She husked it.
Husking is kind of like low and quiet, so I don't know why there's an exclamation point. But hey, fuck it, man. We've gotten this far.
Cherchez la femme.
We've gotten this far.
I don't know.
I would like to proffer, and this theory is probably going to prove wrong, that maybe the writer of this tome maybe English is not his first language. Maybe he's French. Maybe that explains us all, and he's French.
I'm afraid I must disabuse you of that theory. By the way, Mike, your face while I was describing all of that, you look like the Julia Roberts meme with all the math running in front of her. You know what I'm talking about? You're just like you're looking over here and you're looking over there, and just like your brain is like processing the calculus of this man's prose, and you just
look. I'm trying to justify the creation of this.
Oh, there's no justification for this.
I don't even know what to call it. Manuscript.
All right.
I don't want to say it's text, Mike, because text implies purpose and legibility.
Yeah, there's that.
The ways of our civilization are in many ways warped and distorted. But what is your calling? She queried. Bustily?
But what? Huh? What is going on?
She stuck her tits out. I think
she queried bustily. Bustily, she queried.
The fuck does that mean?
The only person there are only a few women that can pull that off, Dolly Parton being one. She definitely queries bustily. And Naomi Wu. But beyond that, not a whole lot of women are declaring things bustily.
Now, she asked his calling, which I took to mean, what do you do? Your calling.
Right,
life.
yeah.
What are you? He gives his name.
Right.
Because that's what
okay, that's what he's called. Yeah. Oh, God. Are you sure this guy's not French or English isn't a second language to him?
Positive. So then we talk about like barbarians, and it's again sub Conan jibber jabber. I am barbarian, civilization bad, Grigner smash.
Live outside with fire only way.
Yeah. How did you come to be the victim of those crazed shaman? Quested Grigner as he escorted.
Why do you care, Grigner? You're a barbarian, and such things are not for the like of you.
That's fine.
Jesus, man. Have some consistent characterization.
That's not happening.
Yeah, I know.
So then they run into Agathim and his, I think.
Yeah,
It's like I'm reading this and I'm like not sure what exactly they're doing. There's a lot of words here. A lot of words.
And they mean things, but what those meanings are unclear.
Yeah, I don't know. And then there's this whole bit with chapter 7 where like I guess the shaman
priest acolyte
priest whatever
the shaman acolyte.
The fucking cultists, okay? Let's call it like
one of these dudes that we thought was dead was not actually dead, and he got up and went after him. Yeah.
Yeah. So gets up, faintly perceptible ceremonial gibberish. And then we get to chapter 7.5. We forgot about chapter 3.5. And to remind us, we get chapter 7.5. And there it begins with a sweeping scimitar swung towards Grigner's head in a shadow blur of motion. No time passed, or all the time passed, and we cut right to the priest getting on top of Grigner and Carthena and sweeping his scimitar at them. Blah, blah, blah. The fight ends the way it's supposed to. Mrifk is called upon again. Blah 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 blah. I think there's another implication that they had sex. Let us
Again?
let they had sex previously. She's referencing what happened
Yeah,
earlier.
right.
Nay, Grigner. Wait, here, let's get the whole thing. Mrifk, I thought I had killed the last of those dogs, muttered Grigner in a half apathetic state. Which at this point is we're just gonna let it. It's fine.
Look,
He said a thing.
apathy.
He said a thing. Nay, Grigner, you doubtless grew careless while giving vent to your lusts. Because he's a slut.
Plural? Like, I don't really think Gringer is complicated enough to have multiple lusts. I think it's like one.
But let us not.
I mean, there's this thing called. I mean, what's his refractory period? Christ.
But let us not tarry any long, lest we overtax the fates. We vented our lusts earlier, but now we don't want to tax the fates. We're clear on this, right? All right.
Sure.
So it was a dungeon quickie. I mean, is that what's going on here?
I guess a dungeon quickie. So they get directions. I get their directions. We get a brief discussion on while they're walking through the corridor that they're always walking down because they're never going to leave this corridor ever. It goes on
because somebody built this building with no windows.
Exactly. And we get a discussion of the politics of the Norgolian Empire, or at least the politics of Gorzom. He's a tyrant, but he has a big army that he pays well, so he's fine. Blah 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 blah.
I mean, that makes a certain amount of sense. If you're a tyrant, you best pay your military well, or you're going to have a coup on your hands.
Well, that totally makes sense. This part makes sense. Like, the people don't like him, but his soldiers do because he pays them well.
I mean, it makes surprising sense, honestly.
Yeah, it does. And then they go through a some kind of trap of some kind. It's like, there's a rotating thing, and she pushes a thing, and they go through a thing, and there's another thing that they push, and they solve the puzzle. More hollow gaping sockets. That's another line he likes a lot. Hollow gaping sockets. Lots of that. They find a corpse, and she's sad because it was a dude that she knew.
Did she bang him, or
it's suggested, but she denies it, and then Grigner's like, I think there's more going on here than you're telling me, and that's where we leave it. And don't worry about it because it's never going to come up again.
Never gonna happen.
It has no bearing on the story whatsoever. There's light at the end of the tunnel. That is a further sign that we are nearing our goal. I smell horses. Huzzah! Kitty. And then blah, 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 blah. And then there's a conversation between the prince and his vizier, who Grigner killed earlier, but is apparently not dead. And then
not dead enough.
A shadowed bulk leapt behind the jutting promontory as it brought down a double-edged axe with the speed of a striking thought.
That word is speed. Okay, all right.
Speed of a striking thought. I highlighted this sentence because it's actually not terrible. The speed of a striking thought is actually an almost effective metaphor for what he's trying to do here. Almost. I had to read it a couple of times before I knew who was actually doing the striking, before I realized it was Grigner. But the line "speed of a striking thought," I like that. It's not.
I feel perhaps speed of a fleeting shart might be a.
That would be more in tone. Then there's a Gaffend, the guy that he killed before, whose face is now bisected by the axe, the double-edged axe that struck with thought. And then we kill the prince, and then the story gets weird, right? then what happens?
Oh yeah, the Eye of Argon like emits like this blinding light and then turns into goo and like attaches itself to Grigner.
Yeah. Attaches itself to Grigner and leeches his blood away, and then he burns it with fire. Wait. Yeah, this goes on.
It goes on for a minute, then it
goes on for a minute, and there's a point here where it gets cut off. And for a long time, people thought that's how it ended, because the part of the story got cut off. It's kind of like Clockwork Orange.
Oh yeah,
the American version was published deliberately without the final chapter. And so that was what Kubrick used to make his film, which is why it ends the way it does. But that was done deliberately. In this case, the ending of Eye of Argon was simply lost, which is relevant to what we're going to talk about next. And there's the lost ending. He kills the thing with fire, and the very ground below the thing began to vibrate and swallow it up with a belch. Grigner gets up. He's had all his blood leached away, but whatever. He throws the limp female over his shoulder. They get on a horse. He pulls another one behind him. He must have more hands than we're hitherto aware of. He rides off into the sunset while the nobles, soldiers, and peasants to replace the missing monarch. And it ends, "Long live the king." 3 exclamation points.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the thing that happened. All right. So